Now for sort of the main course, we all know how it goes. You start a journey. To start a journey, you have to choose your strategy towards engaging with innovation. And from our experience here dealing with corporate innovation, you have to score very high on two elements. You have to score high on your corporate strategy to innovation, and you have to score high on your appetite and engagement with Israel, because Israel is a leading source of innovation. I keep holding this. I'm sorry, this is our Innovation Insider. This is our publication specifically for the summit. So I urge you to take a look and read about different topics about innovation in the next decade. So I'm going to put this down now. So you have to score very high on these two elements, your strategy to innovation and your engagement and commitment to Israel. Once you score high on these two topics, you can actually be successful in terms of accomplishing your KPIs towards innovation in Israel. We have 5 people from the crowd that I'm very happy to invite on the stage to share the corporate strategy that they are deploying towards innovation and what has been successful, more successful and less successful. And I think a panel is as good as the panelists, so I'm very excited about this specific one because we have terrific 5 people. So I want to invite to the stage our first speaker is Dr. Inken Braunschmidt from Halma. Inken, please join me on the stage. And I think, the podium. Halma has a very unique strategy toward innovation, so I'm happy to have you here joining us and explaining. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Halma, you might have heard of, maybe not, as a Footsie 100 UK-based group of companies owning 50 companies all over the world. And all these companies sharing one purpose, and that purpose is growing a safer, cleaner, healthier future for everyone, every day. This is massive, and it gives you already a hint in which areas our companies are in. We're in med tech, which is about vital signs, so companies having products, technology, services in this area. It's about ophthalmology, diagnostics or surgery. It's about real-time location tracking in hospitals and some others. We are in environmental tech. It's all about clean air, clean food. It's about clean water. And last but not least, we're in safety tech. So we are keeping people safe at the places they work, but also where they work and live with fire safety and process safety. That gives you, again, then the hint what we are looking for and what our approach to innovation is. So our companies own a lot of technology and IP themselves. So that's good. On the other hand, many of them sell B2B devices. Some are connected already, some have data to deliver services, others not. So when I joined Halma 2.5 years ago, it was about 2 things. How can we support our companies to drive along that what we call the digital playing field? There's not one fits all, so we have digital playing fields, but there's others we need to support in tech, business models, but also structuring. And on the other hand, how do we support and drive them along the innovation playing field and how to innovate in a faster, better, and more circular thinking way than in that very typical linear plan, build, act engineering way. So what we are looking for is not inventing all that ourselves. So, for example, digital platforms are commodity. Our engineers could invent the 1 millionth platform, but they shouldn't because it's out there. Same is true for other tech, which is out there. So if we want to be fast and if we want to add to our growth, innovation growth, then we are looking for partners because it makes you faster, it makes you smarter, and that's why we're also in Israel, because for us, it's one of the most innovative hotspots in the world where we find all what we are looking for in these 3 areas. We find partners, we find talents, we find startups, and we are part of an ecosystem which is supporting and nourishing itself. And that not just happens here in Israel, that goes beyond Israel into the world. So that's then also our offer to the startups we have in Israel.
Thank you very much. Please have a seat. And I'm happy to invite Tony Canasta from Denso to join us on stage. We have companies here from different locations, different sectors, and different people leading innovation. Tony.
Thank you, Laly. Always nice to be invited to attend and participate and to share a stage with you. Hello, everyone. Excuse me. My name is Tony Canasta. I'm the Director of Corporate Ventures for Denso. For those of you that probably don't know Denso, we're one of the world's largest auto parts suppliers. So we're tier one. Okay, yes, I know I'm tall. Okay, bring it up. I think my voice will carry without the microphone. At least that's what my wife says. So tier one auto parts supplier. So we deal with all the global auto manufacturers, mostly focused light vehicle, but also we do a bit of heavy duty work as well. So we supply discrete parts, module systems to automobiles. So most of the automobiles you drive probably have parts from Denso in there. We're a fairly large corporation based in Japan. Last fiscal year we did about $49 billion in revenue. I am the Director of Corporate Ventures. I sit in Silicon Valley, which is an office that we started about 10 years ago. At that time, our corporate president recognized that disruption was, strangely enough, coming to our industry. And I'm a bit of a weird animal in that before being a corporate VC and running a CVC group, I was actually a financial VC for 10 years. So I got introduced to the person that founded our office in Silicon Valley, and Denso was very interested in that time about understanding how we could work with this disruption. So not try to fight against it, but try to find a way to embrace it. And this from an industry that we are part of that for decades has been all about internal innovation, right? We have large R&D budgets. I think last fiscal year we spent about $7 billion on internal R&D. But recognizing at that point in time that that wasn't going to suffice, that we were going to get disrupted in different areas that were very important to how we ran our business. So we started the CVC group just over 7 years ago. We've done 17 investments. We're mostly early stage focused. But we have a very interesting mindset around how to embrace the challenge of working with a startup globally. So I mentioned 17 startups. We actually have one here in Israel. We've done 3 investments in Europe. We've done a couple in Canada, and the rest of them are in North America. And it starts with a strategic interest in those startups. We don't invest for financial gain. As you can imagine, any one given investment that we make that might return great cash-on-cash return, like a 10x return, doesn't really impact us financially on a year-to-year basis. So for us, it's around finding those technology gaps in our roadmap and trying to fill those gaps by working with external innovation that's driven by the startup. So I've mentioned ecosystem a little bit, and this is really where we came into contact with OurCrowd. When we looked across the world and said, wow, there's a lot going on in Israel. We don't have any facility in Israel. And strangely enough, Israel doesn't have a native auto industry. But there's all these smart engineers coming up with lots of interesting ideas. We at least need to go see what's going on and figure out how we can play in that environment. And that's what led us to OurCrowd, and being able to partner with them has delivered us visibility and partnerships and discussions that we could never have had otherwise. And 2 years ago, we actually extended our range here by putting a person on the ground. So we have a Denso person here in Tel Aviv that does technology scouting. We constantly look at startups on how to partner with them and bringing them into our global ecosystem of how to work with them. And that could start with something as simple as a POC. That's certainly working through my group as an investment, and that leads then to a larger strategic relationship for us. So certainly happy to answer some questions later. Thank you, Laly. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Tony. Please have a seat. And I'm happy to invite next on stage Mitchell from HP Ventures. I think as I said, each of the companies are from a different location, different industry, some with a venture arm and some without. So Mitch from HP Ventures obviously lead the venture side.
Thank you for inviting us. My name is Mitchell Weinstock. I'm one of the partners at HP Tech Ventures. So just a preliminary, about 5 years ago, HP split into 2 $50 billion companies, and one company became Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. They're in the cloud, they do servers, they do software. That's not us. We're HP Inc. We make things. We make laptops and displays, and we love printers and ink, and anything at the edge is probably in our wheelhouse. Our team formed at the time of separation. There's 5 partners on the team. We have one person on the East Coast in Boston. 2 of us are kind of spot welded to the chairs in Palo Alto. And we have formed a team here in Israel. And they're not at Indigo or Cytex, which is part of our companies, but they're literally at SOSA, right in the middle of one of the biggest innovation areas that we have. And so much technology being sourced from Israel that we literally need a full-time team to keep up with it. And also, as Laly was talking earlier, deal with all the corporate innovation, petting zoo issues that come up when executives want to come to Israel and meet a bunch of startups. We have to manage that in a way that is good for the startups and actually good for the executives. So our team is very, very interested in the kinds of technologies that come here. There's a lot of deep tech. Each of our people on the team has a lot to do with specifics. So we have some people who are dealing with print. I'm the guy that's doing a lot of the underlying technologies like cybersecurity and AI chips and all the things that are difficult to understand. So we spend a lot of time working with startups and trying to protect them from our own company. The worst thing you want is a hug of love from HP to kill you. At the same time, trying to get POCs done properly is something in our wheelhouse. So I become your personal concierge Sherpa that will take you directly into some part of the company that needs what you're doing. So we spend some time taking these interviews. We do a good job of getting you directly into the place inside the company where it matters. And then we kind of try to help teach you how to talk to our company. We also try to teach our company how to not ask for abusive things like, please give us exclusivity and don't give you any kind of forecast. So I think we've done a good job over the last 5 years. They say the success of a CVC team is measured in how many times. If you can survive 3 CEO changes, then you're doing pretty good. Right.
It's a good measurement.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mitch. Next, I want to invite Alan Goldstein from Procter Gamble. I think they have a very unique model in terms of incorporating innovation. Thank you, Alan.
Good morning. It's great to be here. Let me talk a little bit first about Procter & Gamble. We're a little company that's been around for, sorry, I'm the shorter guy. Small company, been around for about 180 years. We have pretty global reach. We touch 5 billion consumers every single day, right? Which actually, I would love another company to do that, because not even an Android operating system does that. Different than a traditional corporate venture, we're much more like a startup studio. So we don't believe capital is a differentiator, and most of the investors in this room and around the world are going to write a check faster than we are. What we are chartered to do is create new businesses that have billion-dollar potential for the company that are outside of the core of what the corporation's currently playing in today. Right, so we're not going to work on laundry and shampoo and beauty. Those are all great businesses, and we have a lot of adults working those. What we do is we really believed in this world we live in today. It's the best of the big co with the best of the startup world to really create superior consumer experiences in categories where people are willing to pay. Right? So what we do globally, and specifically here in Israel, is we partner in really unique ways with startups. We're not about acquiring their technology. We're about developing it together and bringing the agility and the great minds and the great talent with the corporate capability that we do. We'll bring capital to the table if needed, but that's not really the differentiator. We've been around for about 5 years. We've stood up 4 businesses so far. None of them are Procter-like size yet, but we're on our way. Here in Israel, everything we do, first of all, we like to be grounded in science, because businesses at P&G are going to stand up, and the successful ones are going to be in decades to come. Right? So we like a point of differentiation. We like to be grounded in science, which automatically opens the door to the Israeli ecosystem with all the great talent and technology here. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Alan.
Thank you.
Please have a seat. And last to join us on stage is Tatyana Orozco from Grupo Sura. I want to welcome you on stage, Tatyana. Well, I think it's interesting to see innovation being done. Thank you very much. Happy to have you. Tatyana is a former minister of the government of Colombia, twice. So you have a unique perspective on innovation on a government level, and a corporate level, and a group holding company level. So happy to have you here on stage.
Thank you, Laly. Mitch got me worried. I'm about to go through my first change of CEO. So I still have to wait 2 more to go to reach you. Grupo Sura is a financial group from Latin America. We are present in 11 countries, and we're basically in the banking, insurance, and asset management industry. So we also manage pension funds. We bought several years ago the ING operations and the RSA operations throughout LATAM, which makes us a company of 60,000 employees throughout and 50 million customers. We started an innovation, I work for the holding company, so I'm not in one of the business units, and we created an innovation strategy from the holding company to be able to have the opportunity to look into innovation, being the financial system as disruptive as it is. We needed to have a group of people looking from the outside, people who were not worried about what's going on in the daily ongoing operations, but that could have a look into what was going on in the financial sector as a whole and what were the disruptions that were out there. So basically, we started an innovation system that consisted of an observatory where we look into trends and risks. Then we have a corporate venture program also in place. We have invested around $35 million to the date in the last 2 years, mostly US, and that's one of the reasons we're here. We're trying to diversify as well regionally. Then we have an entrepreneurship program that's already started with 2 new companies over the last year. Then we also have a partnership program where we look around, and that is what we use our corporate venture program for. As you were mentioning before, the fact that we look into strategic alliances or partnerships that we can do to grow our business. So we want to work together. And up to now, from our portfolio, I think something like 50% of the companies we've invested in, we have already engaged with the companies already. And we also have an accelerator, which we haven't been able to start, but we're also looking into the NYU OurCrowd project and knowledge forum to see how we can kickstart that. And then I'll be happy to answer any questions now.
Thank you very much. So I wanted to have sort of a direct question to each of you that is more based on previous conversations we've had and your specific angle of doing innovation in Israel. I'm actually going to start with Mitch. We had an interesting conversation before about Mitch was concerned if he's going to be too rude to share his frustration with the Israeli ecosystem, and we said nothing is too rude in Israel. So please do. Sharing is caring. Mitch, please vent. How does it feel to do business in Israel with the Israeli founders?
Actually, working with the founders is great. I think some of the things we talked about earlier, I see fairly consistent mistakes in the presentations that we get. So, one of the things that happens often is that there's a great amount of talk about everyone's background, and if you're dealing with the cyber side, often you'll see everybody's from the 8200, everybody's been a lieutenant in the Air Force, there's all this particular thing that starts to sound like buzzwords. So in the beginning it sounds very impressive, but then you realize like everybody's done that, and you start to discount that, which is kind of a shame, but it's the level of emphasis becomes too much versus like what you're actually accomplishing. I think the other thing that's interesting about these decks is that we're always missing a very important financial component. The technology is very heavy, but this is not a grant you're asking for free money. Almost every time it's missing how the investor gets their money back. Where is enough of the business model that explains how you're going to make money and how you're going to return the money back? I mean, it's not strategic to lose money, but you got to tell us some way that we're going to do well. And it's pretty consistent. You're almost force-feeding people to tell you how it's going to work. Another thing also is this insistent need to have an NDA before you can say anything. I don't know if you had the experience, but even public information that you're talking about in a booth, the minute you get into a room, everybody wants to sign an NDA. It's like, stop. Let's just talk about what the product is first. Let's find the right people in the company who want to talk to you. Maybe by the third meeting, if we're actually asking for something that's uncomfortable, let's put an NDA in place. But like first thing out of the gate, there's somebody gave you a checklist that make sure you have the NDA, make sure you have this. That doesn't fly. We have to look at so many different kinds of technologies. And the last thing is that there's a general knowledge of missing of competition outside the region. So you all believe that you're the only guys doing whatever this is. Believe me, there's plenty of dog walking apps. It's like, we don't need another one. But the extent of thinking that there's only one way to solve this problem, and if you leave the country, you'll find there's others. So not knowing the scale of competition and how you fit also seems to be a thing that I see missing quite often.
Well, maybe Tony, from your experience, what has been sort of a roadblock for you being active in Israel? What has been frustrating, and what has been actually attractive for you in Israel?
Okay, so I think we find interesting opportunities and interesting challenges in Israel. And this is coming from a company that's headquartered in Japan. So you immediately start out with cultural differences. Start out with geographic differences. And of course, there's always language issues. But when we get down at the level where the engineers are talking, that's where we find a lot of success. Where you're talking about the core technology, and for us, many times it's hardware. I think as a lot of us know, and we're hoping for autonomous vehicles in the future. The vehicle used to be strictly a mechanical device, and now you're starting to see the marriage of hardware and software. And in the future, when it does get to autonomy, it'll be probably 70% software driven and 30% hardware. So we're going through that transition as an industry. But on the things that we look at on the hardware side, where Israel and the amazing engineers here and the technology development really stands out, we can have very good engineering discussions at that level. And we can start out with a POC where we're both focused in the right direction. Getting to some of the business discussions can sometimes lead to some of those cultural differences, language differences come into play. I think Mitchell alluded to some of the things that we also struggle with. And then I think that getting beyond that and getting to a stronger relationship where we're willing to invest and then willing to work together to try to achieve something together. That's the ultimate goal for us. And it can be a bit of a struggle because a lot of times, for example, our Japanese engineers don't want to come here and work in Israel. And so a lot of times I tell the Israeli startups, we really need you actually to go to Japan, not work in Japan, but you need to sign up for visits to Japan fairly frequently, because that will get you a lot more credibility than for us trying to stay distant from each other and work in distantly apart.
Right.
And that's not proven to be successful so far for us.
I think two words that are mentioned again and again is POCs and relationships. So maybe I'll start with POCs with Inken. You've been, I think, very successful in terms of leveraging the concept of POCs, of proof of concept, and running different POCs in parallel. Maybe you want to share a bit about that. And also, you've been running innovation in another corporation before, and you've always been very loyal to Israel. So maybe you also mention that as well.
Yeah, so first perhaps was a proof of concept. So yes, we are able to invest also with Halma. We have a corporate investment vehicle, but honestly, all of us have, yeah? So what is our differentiator? So what we try is when we come and when we want to engage with startups in Israel is we are looking for partnerships, real, true strategic partnerships. And very often part of that and the start point is a POC, a proof of concept. Let's do something together. To get there, I think there's three things really important and maybe success factors. First of all, you have to really come here. I mean, yes, sometimes the startups have to go to the other country and to your mothership or whatever, but you need really to take the effort and be here and travel here. People need to see you. You need to get to know other people, other corporates. So the startups see, okay, there's somebody really interested, and then you can either build an own team here, what I did in my last company, or you find a partner. In this case, we do with Halma. We have OurCrowd, who are our ears and eyes and mouths here in Israel. So you need somebody to be here taking care of your interests and of the startups and the relationship. So I think that's one. The second is, if you do proof of concepts, you have to have that interest of there needs to be something in for both, not just for us and our companies, but you need to be genuinely interested to make that startup successful and not just making a show or whatever. And last but not least, to be successful, I do believe you have to serve the ecosystem. So if you enter here and being part of it, then you get connected, you get help and support from everywhere, but you have to do the same. And then if you do so, it comes back to you even beyond Israel. So this goes in other ecosystems in this world where you are connected, get to know other startups, and So if you do good to the ecosystem, it will do good to you, not always from the same person or startup or whatever, but it will come back to you. And I think these are three important things I learned engaging with Israel, but you get it back plenty of times.
So Alan, is it all about relationships?
So great comments, and I'll build on those. So I think relationships are critically important. I wouldn't say it's all about relationships. So for us, we are in long-term partnerships with startups, right? As a big co and as we're starting to create new businesses for P&G, the entrepreneur or the startup is such a critical component, right? So we're not about acquiring them, or we're about their technology, and are they grounded in science? And then how do you build that relationship and that trust? We as an organization truly are in service of entrepreneurs, right? And I am a true believer of paying forward, give first, because I think it comes back around somewhere. And whether you're in Israel, in Palo Alto, in Shanghai, the world is really tiny, right? And if you don't treat people the way they expect to be treated, it'll come back around and people won't want to work with you, right? What I would tell you is, as we do this work, it's a lot of pilots and a lot of little steps, right? Because everybody kind of wants that big end game, but it's a journey. Innovation is a journey, right? And every step of the way, you're trying to kind of test assumptions, and some of them you get right, but many you get wrong, and you need to be able to pivot and not abandon ship, right? Because if there's something truly there, and for us, the truly there means the science is there, and then consumers can really appreciate what you're delivering to them. You just got to have the wherewithal to do that. So at the end of the day, it does come kind of back to that relationship, right? And make sure that's a really strong foundation.
So when you speak about a journey from Colombia to Israel is a long journey. What has been attractive for you in Israel when you explore integrating innovation and placing investment and being more present in Israel? What has been attractive for you?
So I believe at first, we're very close to the U.S., so we were, of course, looking, and all of the companies we've invested in, like 95% are U.S.-based, but then we decided, okay, there's more to it, and we started looking into other ecosystems, and definitely the Israeli ecosystem is very interesting for us in the sense that there are cybersecurity companies, agrotech companies, even finance tech companies, fintech companies that are interesting. We did one of those tourism tech tours in October. We came with our CEO, and actually two of our CEOs came, and we did the tours, and we looked into what was going on, and we decided we're going to definitely be looking more into it, and that's why we're here. We're thinking about beginning partnership with OurCrowd. We've been looking into that very strongly, and because we want to identify companies who we can partner with to strengthen our position and service our clients better. And I believe there are companies to look into. This week we have a lot of meetings today. It's a full schedule for all of us, and so I believe there's going to be a lot of movement going on through the next couple of months. We're already signing an MOU agreement this week with the Israeli Innovation Authority as well. They're helping us out. We are working with the SAP in Israel. So there's been a lot of work going on through the last months, ever since we came in October. So the acceptance that we've had by the ecosystem has meant that we not only did the tourism tech tour, but that we're going to be having some things to show off in the next couple of years.
Yeah, no, I think if within 6 to 10 months after you visit Israel, you've done something, then in hindsight, it has not been tech tourism, it's been real. So
that's what we're looking forward to.
Right. Well, I want to thank you all very much. This has been sort of a taste, and I welcome everyone to approach you guys for more direct conversations. So I want to thank you for being here and sharing your experience with us.